So is this worse than Trisha and the Holocaust?
Yes. My entire prediction that because he knows better, this is worse.
This is the U.S. intelligence agency, mind control.
Here.
What intro?
Well, I just when we do formal intros, it's supposed to make the video do better. So I figured we're gonna play a game with the H3 podcast, and you're gonna tell me which is worse to platform. Okay, so we're gonna compare Hasan and Trisha Paytas right now, and you tell me what one is actually worse.
Oh boy. Okay.
Oh my god! I
So
feel sick from that.
first of all, last week you admitted you don't know what the Holocaust is or why we thought.
Oh my god!
They had to bleep him saying the Holocaust.
Yeah, I know. It's a great costume.
This is not H3's like channel, by the way. This is a clip of it, by the way. But Ethan himself has said that he gives permission for anyone to like basically re-upload his shit just like they do with Hasan because he wants to dominate the internet. So
God, are we really gonna go there?
So I asked you to watch Schindler's List.
Ethan texted me, watch Schindler's List, and I was like, no, but also, okay, let me just do it. Like,
What?
I know.
You said yes, I'd love to. That would be awesome. I said it would be funny. You watch Schindler's List. Stop with the fucking...
No, my initial reaction was like, yes, I'm excited to watch this because everyone talks about it, and I don't know. So initially, I was like, yes, I'm down. Liam Neeson, Ralph Fiennes, I'm down. I'm in for.
Trisha Paytas is an idiot, and I'm very excited to see how dumb she actually is. Do you think she's putting it on?
No. Legitimately,
she's genuinely that dumb.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do you have questions about it, or we're just?
Did it? Were you surprised that a movie about the Holocaust was sad?
Oh yeah, it was way too sad. We started like watching it, and then our dinner arrived, and I felt really sad eating like mac and cheese while someone was getting blown in the back of the head.
Eating the mac and cheese was sad enough.
Fucking god.
It was. I felt so bad that day because I had Panda Express that for lunch, and then I had the mac.
Bro. The fact that, so like, if you don't know, she is now, I don't know if they're married, but I know they have a kid.
And it's his brother.
Yeah, and so he's so Jewish, his name is Moses, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, like,
he's from Israel. So
yeah, so you would think
she would know.
No, you would think he would have the foresight to be like, mac and cheese is not a good combo with Schindler's List.
Mac and cheese for dinner, and I'm like, wow, I'm really fat. But then we watched it, and it was really sad.
Also, hold on.
Probably hard to hear. Like,
how old is she?
Old enough to know better.
She's eating mac and cheese for dinner.
Does that surprise you?
No. It's about on brand.
35. She's a little bit older than me.
Just my only critique of Schindler's List is like, I get it, it's sad, and it was like it was probably a great movie that won Oscars, but like audibly I couldn't hear them. It wasn't an accent thing. It wasn't like I just couldn't. The audio was horrible. They didn't have
turn it up.
Yeah, you can turn on subtitles.
How?
You fucking idiot.
You don't know how to turn on
Anything
subtitles?
has subtitles? Does this have subtitles?
Yeah, well, yeah, actually it does. It has captions. All right, stop.
I didn't know. Anyways, aside from the subtitles, like the audio was horrible, and it was all in black and white, which I feel was a cop out. Whoever directed that film, it was
Steven Spielberg directed.
Okay, I think
he knows a few.
I think he cheapened out with it by not having to do it in color. Like for blood, he probably
black and white is harder to shoot.
Being on the budget.
Literally.
Oh my god.
Because
all right, let me read what you texted
do that.
me.
He would go full out. Shout out Quentin.
Let me.
Oh my god,
that would be appropriate. And the Schindler's List,
by the way.
Samurai sword shit, and blood spurting everywhere.
No, but he did Inglourious Basterds.
I'd love to see. Yeah, Schindler's List should have really graphic gore. You're right.
And they all look the same. They literally all look the same. I was so confused. And they all wear the armbands, not just the Nazis. The Jews wore the armbands. Everyone wore armbands. I'm like, I'm so confused. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? And even the Jews were on the bad guy's side. I was so confused. Like the Jews were like on the bad guys. I was so
Moses,
confused.
how do you?
You okay?
No. Oh my god.
This is insane. You can't.
Yeah, he
Did
hated
she
it. so-
really just say
Well,
I couldn't tell who the
this is
bad
like-
guys were?
This is not the takeaway. You're supposed to get from Schindler's List.
We did watch the ending on YouTube, but we couldn't understand the ending. He was just really
You skipped to the
either
ending.
he was
It
upset
is
or
lagging
happy.
a
Either
lot.
he thought he could free
Oh, he
more
was
Jews
stoked. He was stoked. Yeah.
because he freed all those people,
Yeah,
and they're
he
like,
was
"Thank
stoked.
you."
Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
Why would he be sad?
How could you misinterpret that? He said, I could have sold this ring and
Oh.
saved more lives.
Oh, I did not hear. I couldn't hear it.
God.
I just know he started crying.
think
and
you
I'm
have-
like,
Oh my
you know how
God,
some people are
dude.
so happy that they saved all the people? They're like, "Thank you, we got saved," and I couldn't understand if he was happy or sad. And neither we couldn't
I
understand.
feel like
We tried. We tried.
I feel like I'm living through a second Holocaust right now.
That's appropriate.
He didn't bleep that one, probably because it wasn't at the beginning of the video.
Yeah, it's further down.
Okay.
I low-key got really sad about the Holocaust this weekend. Moses explained to me what actually happened, and I like started crying.
You just found out about the Holocaust?
I had no idea. I gave
But I
my
wa-
second.
No, I definitely don't want to fuck you. Trust
You
me.
definitely do, because you want to like.
Oh,
I just
I
feel
thought
like
this
either
was
wanna,
gonna
like,
be the
be me or
Holocaust
be
part.
me, you know, like one.
She is a revolting human being.
I
It's
don't wanna be-
everything about her is
You
disgusting.
think that everybody wants to?
I low-key got really sad about the Holocaust this weekend. Moses explained to me what actually happened, and I like started crying.
You just found out about the Holocaust?
I had no idea. And then he was like telling me, I'm like, well, what did Hitler do that was so bad?
Oh my God.
And then he told me.
I have to beat you.
Did
I
you
have
hear Dan in the background
Mhm.
laughing?
to beat you. I can't lose to you.
Trisha,
Yes.
the modern day city of Istanbul was known by what name
Constantinople.
in the 13th century? I'm sorry, it's Constantinople.
Shit.
All right.
What?
So
Constant
that's
nipple. What is that?
Constant nipple, yeah.
What was it?
So-
Can we just also say we don't actually need gravity?
Ugh.
Like we actually
Okay,
don't.
we really only wanted the Holocaust part, but they didn't.
I hate her so much. Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh
So
my god.
that is end of part one. Okay, so that's
Get her the fuck off the
that's,
screen.
that's who we're gonna compete against on what's worse to platform. I don't think there's going to be any audio on this video, but check this out, right? So, can you read French?
It's, something presents a horrible sort of attendant. Don't know that one. Something inventor. Something. Don't know that. I was close. I think. It's very similar to English, but not close enough.
Okay. See where this is going?
Oh my god, is he gonna jump? Oh my god, he is. Oh, I'm so excited.
Do you know where he is right now?
No.
All right. Yeah, you have a few minutes or a few seconds to figure it out.
I mean, I'm assuming it's the Eiffel Tower, but
Correct.
I'm probably wrong. It is.
And done.
Amazing.
Okay.
Amazing. Amazing. That was awesome.
They're measuring the crater he left in the ground.
Oh my god. That's fucking awesome.
It's like now we have an actual human death in the metric as well, you see. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I think Ethan did this on purpose because he knows it's going to get him views.
It's very
So,
possible.
Just watch how Ethan just goes. By the way, I had to shut this off halfway through. I said I cannot watch any more of this, and that's when I was like, we have to do a reaction to this one.
Okay.
Doesn't Ramaswamy also want to ban TikTok?
He
Like,
does.
Okay, I'm a fan of that.
I think he-
Okay, well now I'm voting for him.
I think he's
Wait. A single based opinion from Hasan? Is that the only one he's ever had?
One sec.
For Ramaswamy and RFK Jr.
His-
Both of the guys that he
His
showed.
big thing
Speaking-
is he's extremely hawkish on China, right? Like that's like the foreign
Yeah, I
policy
don't like that.
corner
He
that
said he
he's,
wants to preempt a war against China.
he wants to like fight against China, but he also kind of wants to like leave Taiwan to China. It's like very weird. He has like a very weird foreign policy perspective on it.
Right.
The obviously like xenophobic anti-Chinese perspective is like shared commonly by the entire intelligence community.
Do you know what he's talking about?
No.
He's talking about Vivek Ramaswamy, how he said he literally his policy is as soon as we copy the chips, fuck them. Now, Hasan here saying using the word xenophobia doesn't exist for starters.
No,
you know,
it's a propaganda term.
Well, it's also like we have propaganda on our end as well, with like whether you have a legitimate opinion about communism in China or not, right? There's things that are linked to it, like the COVID pandemic, and communism, right? So these are naturally things that our media is weaponizing anyway, but that's the stupid people, like that's only like 10 to 20% of America. The really, really dumb ones that are like actually, but still also plugged in and watch the news. That's a small percentage of America.
Yeah.
And then another 30% doesn't give a shit about anything. And then the rest, 50 to 60% of these people are at least politically informed enough to have an opinion on something. Whether or not that opinion is like racist or not, they at least have like done some type of like knowledge behind it, like my mom she came over today and she brought up the guy who said he fucked Obama, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, because it's not like she watches that, right? So somebody in her proximity was giving her the take she was recycling to, and she was trying to say something about how they're trying to like make it because they're afraid of Michelle Obama running. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like, and she told me that he passed a lie detector, and it's like, no, he didn't, because I know what
he literally didn't. Yeah,
you want to know what happened? Whoever the fuck she was talking to said, because Tucker, have you seen the intro that Tucker Carlson did to this guy? Okay, so Tucker Carlson even says he even took a lie detector test. Doesn't say that he passed or failed. He implies that he passed it. Right? Deliberately misleading the audience to the point where my mother was arguing with me, like somebody who actually does like research into information warfare and tactics versus whatever fucking idiot she's talking to. Right? And then she was like, well, all the rest of the news is left. And I'm like, there is no such thing as left news. And she's like, well, Democrat, which just translate to anything that isn't proto-fascist, I don't care about. Right?
Pretty much.
Like, you don't want a balanced take. You just want proto-fascism fed to you. That's literally what it means. I went on a side tangent about propaganda in our country. This whole take he has about the intelligence community being xenophobic, we literally like have an interview where we talk about how they just let them take pictures of U.S. military bases and do nothing about it because like, it's like, well, within their right to do so. It's like they're obviously spies, taking photographs. Like this whole xenophobia thing. There's the whole, what is her name? Ling Ling or something? Fang Fang.
Fang Fang. Fong Fong Fang Fang. Whatever it is.
Yeah, Lowen Bobart loves her. I don't know about it. I just know that during the January 6th thing, when they were like confirming the votes, Lauren Bobart was up there talking about Fang Fang.
I mean, it's pretty irrelevant at this point, but
it was
like
always kind of irrelevant.
Not really. Like it's a dude on the Senate Intelligence Committee giving information to a Chinese spy. Like, you think this guy isn't that dumb that she could sweet talk him into giving her information? Of course she could.
Well, that's the main.
Eric Swalwell is his name. The guy's a fucking moron.
The honeypot is the best tactic to use to gain information.
It absolutely is.
Okay, anyway, this whole xenophobia thing. Obviously, we have like these neocon idiots, even in the intelligence department, right? The people who are actually like, we obviously have people in the CIA who would probably vote for Lauren Bobart,
Probably, yeah.
But it's not like, it's just like how that's not a profile of the entire United States government. It's not a profile of, anything, right? So we know certain public information about Chinese intelligence and things like that, right? We know like the term unrestricted warfare.
It comes straight from the Chinese government.
Wolf warrior diplomacy. There's things that like that are just basic knowledge enough for most people to know.
Yeah.
Now, the xenophobia in like the armed service and intelligence community, besides like recently when it just like, because they always used to say like, you know, because they say Beijing Biden, like I said,
Mhm.
there's a certain
Yeah.
faction that try to weaponize anti-Chinese rhetoric.
Mhm.
But like, it's just so silly to me because the era of Deng Xiaoping continued into Xi Jinping's admin. It's literally
Yes.
just like the last, not even the last 5 years, because like if we really gave a shit, we would have acted on the first intelligence that we got of the shit going on in Xinjiang.
Yeah.
But we didn't. We didn't do shit about Hong Kong either. Like, we do not care at all. The only reason we care is because as client states, as Hasan would say, you know, victims of imperialism from China, so they turn to another imperial power to protect them. It's the same thing with like Azerbaijan and Armenia right now. Like the only imperial power they had for the longest time is Russia. Now that the US is willing to enter, Armenia immediately turns to them because they need an imperialist backer. So these people are asking for the defenses of the United States in there. Now, there's different shit like AUKUS, much different thing. That's not just, hey, we want to buy guns from you to patrol our shit.
Yeah, that's a very big deal.
Yeah. And the manufacturing moving to Vietnam and Mexico as well. So China has been essential for the world economy. Even if we wanted to do like a xenophobic rhetoric like we did to the imperial Japanese, and go to that level of it, like a internment camp level of rhetoric, right?
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
if that existed, we couldn't afford to weaponize it and use it. So there might be a future where we could afford to use it, and then we'll see. But this whole thing about xenophobia in the admins, it's not xenophobia when China is constantly saying, hey, we're going to invade Taiwan. Like, if they weren't saying it, none of this would
None
be a
of it would be
conversation.
happening.
All they
Yeah.
have to do is shut the fuck up and not say it, and all of this would disappear, and then they could surprise attack him whenever they want. But they can't do that. So fragile, his little ego.
Yeah.
Draw me as a cartoon character, a yellow bear? Time to die. Death
See you
squad
later.
for you. Not really. But
Well, pretty much.
yeah, I'm just saying, I'm obviously exaggerating here.
Or first leave Taiwan alone and then give them all guns. Like make Taiwan like America, where every person in Taiwan has a weapon.
How do we feel about Taiwan, Hasan?
How do I
China
feel
or
about
not
Taiwan?
China?
Do you see how Ethan set him? You see, Ethan is totally setting him up. You see his
Yeah,
posture
it
and
definitely
everything?
seems like it.
Ethan knows that this is going to now get clicks.
On?
Or is it China or not China?
That's the American policy. Whatever the American
your
policy is, whatever the American
What's
perspective
your
is.
opinion? You really won't say?
No, I'm saying it's like one country, two systems. You know?
No, it's not. It's two different countries.
That's literally, no. That was what they said about Hong Kong, and it was a Chinese propaganda line.
Really?
Taiwan and China.
Is that according to American foreign policy?
Oh, here we
What's
go.
your opinion? What's your opinion? Taiwan independent?
My opinion on Taiwan is that Taiwan is the Chinese.
Really shouldn't have to take that long to come up with an opinion on an entire country. If you're, you know, you're
Really
the
true.
number one political streamer, you know?
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Imagine that happening at like an actual like presidential debate.
Concept of Taiwan should remain in the hands of the people in Taiwan who
So therefore
believe
it's independent.
who
But,
for the
however,
record, for the most part, just believe to not disrupt the ongoing relations with.
Why are you being
China.
so carefully footed around this?
Because I know
Thank
that
you,
there's going to be a
Ethan.
subreddit. There's going to be a subreddit post with like a million fucking
and
comments.
Ethan is counting on that.
Yeah.
being
That's
like,
exactly what
Hasan
he's
wants
counting
everyone in
on.
Taiwan to be killed because he loves China. He's a Xi Jinping.
That's what I
stooge.
heard.
That would
It's
be-
true.
No, I mean, come on. He wants everyone in Taiwan to die. That's just stupid. He's just ignorant.
See, I disagree. I think he's informed enough that this opinion can be entirely put onto his shoulders, and he should be just endlessly roasted for this take. Imagine siding with the country and government that is the closest comparison to Nazi Germany since Nazi Germany. That's what Hasan is doing.
What was that about the Holocaust? I actually, well, I'll pull it when we get there, but I'll show you the exact time when I had to stop watching this earlier.
That's what I just. It's already over. You asked me that question, like in jest,
Ethan,
and it's gonna.
Ethan is probably look at him. Look at how smug he is. He knows. He knows exactly what he's doing.
I was genuinely curious what you think about it.
I think that
Hasan Piker am using a gun.
I think that overall, it's contemporary history is complex. At the end of the day, if the Taiwanese citizens would ever put this up for a vote and we're like, we want to fucking be an independent nation, it's up to them. You know what I mean?
They
You
already
can't.
done that?
No.
There
is no.
Yes, they have.
It's true from everything I've read. The most
Here we go.
Most people in Taiwan nowadays support just keeping the status quo, like the kind of.
But they're
strategic ambiguity of
the
what's
overwhelming
going on
majority, the overwhelming majority's consensus opinion is that they don't want to disrupt relations with China, and they also like
wait till they find out that South Koreans legitimately don't ever think about North Korea whatsoever.
Yeah, legitimately never. They literally do not care. It's hilarious. Maybe they'll start caring now that he's left and gone to Russia. And Putin's apparently going to North Korea.
Yeah, but hasn't Putin been to North Korea before?
I don't think so.
They share a border. I mean, there's a train going to Russia. You would think they would...
Becoming a Chinese state, like becoming a part of the Chinese state.
Do the people of Taiwan like pay taxes in China? Like, do they vote? And
I don't know. I don't know
if they
the
even have
exact
elections.
details of that.
Do they have like travel status in China?
But the thing is, like, as far as Chinese Taiwanese relations goes, like the original inception of the country is
Taiwan
is a fascist dictatorship that America recognized as the real China until Richard Nixon normalized relations with China, and that's where they implemented the they call it strategic ambiguity, which I call lying.
Hold on, this says that the current administration of Taiwan maintains that Taiwan is already an independent country.
There's
Wow, look at how easy it is to just check a
Look
source.
shit up. Yeah, it's funny.
Crazy. Ethan doing it in real time.
Literally real time. And Hasan's going to come back with, yeah, but, no, but, yeah, but, no,
Does
but.
not have to push for any.
Hasan can't even speak his mind, you know? You're not, he's going strategic ambiguity, aka lying. You're the one lying. Look at your speech pattern.
He's thinking about every word he says.
Yeah, exactly. But that's like the point, you know, when as soon as somebody starts thinking about every word that they're saying, you know they're lying. Evaluate the conversation that you're having and start like, and you know, this is, you know, coming from somebody who's in the intelligence agency. So
any sort of formal independence.
There are well, that's because they don't want to do like a full blown they don't want to disrupt the status quo. That's why they're saying that.
Wonder why they don't want to be invaded by China.
They want autonomy while simultaneously being under the Chinese banner according
Seems like
to
they want independence, but they just don't want to be like attacked by China militarily.
Well, that's part of it for sure. So
he's 100% correct.
Well, that's part of it for sure. But see how he's talking faster now because Ethan is just getting so good at this stuff because he's been baiting like memes for years, like actual real meme people. You bring him on and he baits them into all this stuff.
I mean, look at what he does with Oliver Tree. Is that not the perfect example of?
Yeah, but Oliver Tree is like in on it with them.
No, I know, but like their riffing is kind of what he does, except they're in on it every other time. The other person
Hasan has no fucking clue. He's that dumb.
Yeah, he's got no idea what's happening. He's walking straight into a trap.
Was developed a nation state, right? Like so, Mao purged and defeated the counter
the sparrows.
Hello, Hasan. Mao did not defeat shit. He ran, called it the the Long March, I think is what he called it. He ran from the fight with the Japanese, allowed the nationalists to take the fight. The nationalists got beaten to shit by the Japanese, and then Mao comes in and he's like, we were actually in the fight. We succeeded. We are now in control. That's how it happened. Just so you're aware.
Would you believe it? But when you have nationalists fight against something like that and like get wiped out by something like that, the remnants of that group tends to be way more fascistic than the intro of that group, where they used to be more neutral.
Yeah, and that's why the what was it, Kuomintang, KMT? That's why they ended up genociding all the natives on Taiwan. And then they have now changed and become one of the most functional democracies on the planet. Like,
did you see the bunch of like old guys at the memorial to basically say that like Japan was the good guy in World War II?
Oh my god!
Did you see that? It was like there's only like 9 of them left. They're like ancient motherfuckers, and then like one young guy who's like the new fascist recruit or something. I guess I assume he was a caregiver.
I did not
honestly
see that. No,
it was really funny.
Revolutionary forces. They like
because obviously there's still fascists around in Taiwan.
Also, I want to preface the fact that everything that I'm saying, I literally studied the Chinese Revolution. This is what happened. Mao ran the fuck away when the Japanese invaded Nanjing. That's what happened, and he called it the Revolutionary Long March or whatever. Let me double check that.
The Revolutionary hide in a cave.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, Bin Laden read Mao.
I'm not surprised. The Long March was a military retreat undertaken by the Red Army of the Communist Party of China, the forerunner to the People's Liberation Army, to evade pursuit of the National Army of the Chinese Nationalist Party. So they were losing, they ran, and then the Japanese came and fucked them up, and then Mao was like, haha, this is our chance. We are the good guys. That's what happened. Just
now,
so you're aware.
here's my question, though. If they did a tactical retreat, aren't they the smarter and more tactical ones with the better strategies?
Theoretically. But they were running because they were about to get decimated. That's actually what happened. But they won't tell you that.
Taiwan has been a larger part of like China historically, and the original Taiwanese claim was that the entire mainland China
yes, it's West Taiwan.
belonged to what is now known as Taiwan. And that was the American foreign policy position as well, because, you know, China was communist and Taiwan was a fascist military dictatorship. So they were like, oh yeah, we're just gonna completely ignore China until Nixon normalized relations with China.
Okay.
Why did they normalize relations, I wonder? Could it have been money? Could it have been capital? Could the change in policy be because of capital?
Richard Nixon. I think really the conclusion we're coming to is the reason why China was to economically prosper is because Richard Nixon softened the relations that allowed for Deng Xiaoping to then enact his policy. So thanks, Richard Nixon, for creating China in the modern day. Okay, moving on. Now we know that Richard Nixon is actually based when it comes to China.
And then Taiwan became a democratic country, of course, with still a lot of reactionary opinions overall, but like that's gone away in recent years. I think the younger generations have a different perspective on the matter. But overall, like historically speaking, Taiwan and China being the same country, it has been around for much longer than, like, as Elon Musk said, Hawaii being an American state.
My guy. Taiwan was Japanese.
Sudan? South Sudan, according to Hasan, not a country. Fuck South Sudan.
Might want to fact check me on that one, but I'm pretty sure the Japanese owned it between the 40s, between the 1900s and 1940s. I'm pretty sure they were in control of Taiwan, and then when Japan lost is when they ceded Taiwan to the KMT. I believe that's what happened. You might want to fact check me on that one.
But Taiwan independence happened after Hawaii was a state. So, point Hasan.
Yeah, 1895 to
Taiwan is
1945, Japan was in control of Taiwan. So the 40 years prior, China didn't actually have any say in Taiwan. How interesting. It's almost like Hasan is completely full of shit and has no fucking clue what he's talking about. And all his information comes from Wu Mouse.
To be fair, as far as the information that is in the memosphere, because he gets his news from memes. So as far as like the memetic sphere and the information warfare sector, that history is not really presented in the common Zoomer millennial knowledge brain.
Yeah.
So
that's why people need to watch our videos, because we deconstruct this shit and these people are dumb.
I mean, Ethan has been doing a good job.
He has been.
That's what I'm saying. People don't want a formal declaration just because they don't want a fucking war. But they're not wanting to be Hong Kong and be like consumed by the Chinese party.
They don't want to be Hong Kong? What happened in Hong Kong?
Bruh.
In the right place?
No, you are.
That's so funny. Ethan had to turn to people and be like, Ethan is so aware of what happened in Hong Kong, but also it's weird that he doesn't talk about Jimmy Carter and Deng Xiaoping's meetings, because that was like historic in like regulating like the Chinese relations.
Oh, really?
Know? Yeah. Carter and Deng Xiaoping, for sure.
Independent, and then they got fucking eaten.
They were not independent.
Well, they were had some rights. They were less independent than Taiwan, and then they got eaten
Hong Kong
up.
was bought by you know.
Are you saying the people of Hong Kong did not want to be?
There were certainly people that did not want to be a part of China. Absolutely.
I wanted to pull this video up, and because like I'm only signed into YouTube on my other tab, right? I wanted to pull this video up of police in Hong Kong. Age gated me. Can't even bring it up because that one hasn't have a confirmed age. That account that's on that side. So literally, the video is so bad that I can't even play it anyway. So I wouldn't even be able to insert it here if I wanted to, because then the video would get age gated. But you already know Hasan's response would be like, "Well, look at police in America." Bro,
yeah, link will be in the description if you want to watch it.
No, look, just look up the Hong Kong subway raid. Like they bear mace an entire innocent family who's just riding on the subway. It's so fucked. But like it's like, yeah, well, our police here kill people, and it's like
it's always the
whataboutisms. It's not the point.
That is
the point is that you're wrong. Like nobody in Hong Kong wanted to go, and that's like saying like he'll say this too. Crimea wanted to join Russia. You 100%. Know he'd say that too.
Yeah, 100% he will.
100% correct.
Most of them.
A lot of people
there.
He even agreed with us. 100% correct. Thanks, Hasan.
A lot of pride.
A lot of people enjoyed having Western civil liberties while simultaneously like being in a unique
Western civil liberties, aka basic human rights.
What the fuck is he talking about?
Hong Kong.
It's just fucking. He's such
an idiot. It's like, oh no, people want their freedom in Hong Kong, but that's not that bad. It's just freedom. It's not like they got their whole basic human rights taken away.
Yeah, it's not like Hong Kong is just a vassal state of China now, and nobody has any rights.
It was good. So
Jackie Chan
in a unique position, but now that China already does regular trade with the rest of the world. Because like at a time in like the 90s, Hong Kong was seen as like this prosperous middle ground. But since the 2000s, like because of an insane amount of development and insane trade relations with the rest of the planet.
You mean when it was owned by Britain, it was seen differently?
Imagine that.
There are tier 1 cities that are even larger and have more economic activity than Hong Kong in and of itself. And there was always a timeline where Hong Kong was going to be.
Oh my god, he actually used
tier 1 by like 2 decades, if I'm not mistaken, because that was a leap.
You mean they didn't have a right to actually do it?
Crazy.
Peace on Hong Kong. So the people of Hong Kong, there were certainly a lot of people in Hong Kong that did not want to be a part of the Chinese state. But overall, if you look at the situation in Hong Kong right now, it's Like they claimed that it was going to be devastating, and that has not happened.
Not that we know of, because they can't. They have no freedom of speech anymore.
Okay,
They can't talk. They lost
that
the
part
right.
is true. You're right.
But
What are we going to learn from them?
I will not.
They have secret prisons,
I
bro.
do not agree with China's social or civil liberties policies. I do not agree with
this take bullshit.
Yeah. We've seen what he thinks.
I'm going to simplify it a little bit. You know, these obviously aren't his thoughts, but what he's trying to portray is basically like, I mean, I like China. It's just like the genocide, you know? Right? Like,
yeah.
That's literally everyone. Except that, like, you know, micro percent of fascists in this country. Compare it to the actual fucking fascist and racist in government and in society in China, though. Then get back to me.
Yeah.
The point
China is one of the most racist countries on earth.
The point being, if it wasn't for like the genocide in Xinjiang, even Tibet, nobody gives a shit about it, right? Nobody gives a fuck about Tibet. So if it wasn't for the fucking ethnic cleansing of Xinjiang and this shit in Hong Kong, right? And they're constantly talking about trying to invade Taiwan, those three things, the average person wouldn't fucking care about China. They would understand that the reason our capitalism exists the way it does and the reason why our goods are so cheap is because a sweatshop in China makes them. Everyone understood that before all of this. So to say that your only problem is the human rights, no shit. That's literally everyone. Which shows that he is bullshit right here. Because he downplays the actual atrocities that are going on to begin with, and the only reason he has to take a softer stance is because if he doesn't, he'll have to argue with his chat all day. Like we all saw the whole walk back of the Ukraine invasion. Everything is measured and walked back by him. He's an inauthentic person. And if he was authentic, he would be no different than Ugopnik, you know?
that at all. That's why I don't live in China. I live in America. However, having said that, you can just go to Hong Kong and you can just go to every part of China pretty much and see for yourself.
They did say pretty much at the end there. There are definitely certain places where you cannot go.
Talk to the expats who got chased out of China. Talk about them. Talk to them and find out how easy it is to go places.
There's was there actual like security checkpoints to get to Hong Kong before?
Yes.
And those have been destroyed, right? That we know of?
I'm not sure.
But the security checkpoint to get into Xinjiang is like borderline harvesting biometric data, you know? Like it's like if you've been on an American airplane, it's almost on that level, which is weird because it's just another part of China, right?
Yeah, right. It's just another part.
And then Tibet also gets a little sketchy there. You know, but Hasan, if he went
didn't
to
they steal a child?
Who? They stole the Dalai Lama. Yeah, but like if Hasan went to China, he would do the whole white monkey thing the whole time, you know.
Yeah,
this is no longer like the North Korea style hermit kingdom where like no information comes out. Like
it literally is. They literally call it the Great Firewall.
Yeah, it's North Korea with money.
Especially post-COVID, as somebody who literally works in information warfare, the information net that's around China now is insane. Almost everything that I come out of there, I have to screen like I would North Korea because that's why, like, you remember North Korea, Kim is dead every fucking week according to the news, you know? Now, this is the part where I had to stop watching. That's how far I made it into this section. So it started at 50.
Oh my god,
minutes.
It's 2 hours long. Holy
shit.
No,
just this section. The whole podcast is 2 hours long. So I posted me reacting to this when I rage quit this episode.
We have
regardless,
we have a shit ton of Chinese people that live in America.
Regardless, bro, it's not that they had rights.
That is an argument right there. There are Chinese people in this country, so all of your arguments are now invalid. Why are they here, Hasan?
Well,
why did they leave?
There's two sides to that. Because as
Yeah,
you
there's
know,
the
if you
spies
watch
and the
Fox
expats.
News, all these college students that came here to go to school are spies for the state, trying to steal our secrets. Because they have to, even when there's not even a grain of truth, but when there is a grain of truth, they sure make that grain real big.
They really try.
But whatever. I mean, you're. This is interesting that you're very soft. You're very soft-footed around the issue of China. You love China.
He's
I
straight calling him out.
think China.
If you love
deserves-
China so much, why don't you marry it?
Once again, I don't live there. I choose to live here because of.
It's funny because Ethan can't even make eye contact in that section because of like it's like he knows he would laugh if he made eye contact.
The issues that you just brought up, which is civil liberties being taken away, no freedom of speech, walled garden.
Civil liberties is when you're not being genocided.
Internet, like there are.
He also just said the internet. Oh, so you mean that it is trying to be a hermit kingdom and control information that gets out? And you just showed that you do know that? Weird.
Imagine that.
Seems like you're not even a useful idiot on this one, guy.
Certainly parallels to the American state or the Western
I told
world
you.
that you.
I told you.
Every time.
All right. How much you want to bet? How much do you want to bet? He's gonna. I'm gonna put up some wagers. All right. He's gonna say a few. He's gonna compare it to something like. He's gonna use a whataboutism for Cuba. What do we think of the odds of that happening? Is that he's gonna?
I think he's more likely to call on Russia.
Oh, so comparison. So bring up the Russia-Ukraine war. Okay. So you think that's the most likely thing? Okay. Here's what I think he's gonna do. And again, haven't seen it. I think that he's going to do a whataboutism and compare certain things like maybe the Iraq War, certain things that America has done in policy that were bad policies, right? Because again, China just has a really bad policy on this. If they just drop the Taiwan thing, nobody would give it, probably nobody would give a shit and start having finally paid attention to the Uyghur genocide, because trust me, we tried for years to get people to get attention and it didn't happen ever.
No.
The weirdly enough, the biggest exposure to it was Ben Shapiro on Joe Rogan.
Interesting.
Because he talks about the Chinese guy who are the footage we helped get out, right? Of the drone footage of people being led to trains in China, right? You know that footage?
Yeah.
So we helped get it out and circulate it we got it to the BBC, not me personally, but like teams did, get it to the BBC to be played in front of the foreign minister of China before they even knew it was leaked.
The comparisons that you could make, but overall, that kind of mechanism of control is one that I do not appreciate personally, which is why I choose to live here. But as far as like cruelty, oppression, like what you're talking about with respect to Hong Kong,
here we go.
The promises that Western media overall made about like how China was going to crush Hong Kong under its like ruthless, oppressive thumb has not happened.
I don't.
What did you think they were gonna do? Did you think that like the media was like advertising that they're gonna be kicking over buildings and shit and like leading to people and like? Do you think it was gonna be like the images we got out of Xinjiang where people are shaved being led to trains in Hong Kong? Did you think that was gonna happen in Hong Kong? Because if anyone sold you that was horseshit. And it's funny that it was mostly the young people standing up, as always, because the old people are too scared and complacent. They have things to live for. You know, they have children to provide for.
I don't think that was the point. I think the point was just that there's whoever was, vocal about wanting to maintain certain rights in Hong Kong was probably thrown in a secret prison and never heard from again.
Only certain people. Only certain people. The leaders of these movements were for sure. And we're still constantly trying to, like, obviously the main example is Jimmy Lai from Apple Daily. We're always trying to bring attention to how worried we are of his conditions in prison and what's going on in these prisons. Just like, I mean, I don't even like Navalny, but like they do it with him. And if nobody cared until Ukraine happened, but we do it with him as well. Like the dude got hit with a fucking nerve agent. Like he's a fascist, but like, you know, there's certain things that are just like unethical. If you're gonna kill a fascist, just shoot him. You know, what is with the nerve agent stuff? Come on, man.
Political dissidents are definitely
not the
political
best.
dissidents are definitely like
taken out back.
they're not killed or anything,
Some
but
are.
even then
Depends.
it's like completely
They take a
unacceptable.
walk and you know
They don't come
they
back.
go for a beer and they don't come back.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what
they are
I'm
not
saying?
they're not good on that stuff.
But
100%.
well,
Which
anyway,
America
I was just
also
curious.
did.
I didn't mean to open a can of worms, but
In Guantanamo.
you say you think the people of Taiwan whatever they want, and it seems to me that the people of Taiwan want independence. So I'm right with you there, brother. Independence for Taiwan.
I think one nation, two systems.
One nation,
Well,
two
you
systems.
can't say, you literally just said you don't support Taiwan independence and acting like you're agreeing with Ethan to fist bump. What are you doing?
And then on top of that, he said the lie of two nations, one system,
No, he said one
Oh,
nation, two systems, which
systems,
was
whatever.
Hong Kong.
which is Hong Kong, right? And what happened
Who's
to Hong
xenophobic
Kong?
now? He doesn't even know the difference between these
Fucking
places.
idiot.
So is this worse than Trisha and the Holocaust?
Yes, my entire prediction that because he knows better, this is worse, remains true.
Look at him looking dead in the camera right now. Not even the camera that's on, but his
He's
camera.
like,
well, he
fuck.
does it.
Yeah,
You can't even
he
look at
realizes.
Ethan do the fist bump.
Mm-hmm.
You're literally directing your own fist on the camera. You know why he's doing it? Because I'm not sure if you know this, but they're not sitting at the same desk. They have their own cameras, and the wide shot is fake. It's just a composite of their solo shots. Because Hasan is so much taller than Ethan.
That's so funny.
So you can see it right here around Ethan's hand. You can see the green cut around it, maybe.
Yeah.
Systems.
Yeah.
So
Systems.
One nation, two independence for Taiwan.
I think one nation, two systems.
it's funny. Like,
Why is he throwing up a fucking red salute? Some fashy shit, my guy.
I don't know.
Systems.
One nation, two systems.
Oh, see, they're not lining up. That was the issue. See, you
Yeah.
can see it in that shot. They're clearly not lining up. It's
for
overlaid.
Taiwan.
I think one nation, two systems.
One nation, two systems.
Yeah. Which is the current.
Like Israel and
Palestine?
You don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
I hope they go down this rabbit hole.
Oh, I hope they do.
Well, I think they both support like general, human rights for Palestinians. You know?
I mean, Assadists support Palestinian rights. It's not.
Bro,
not
did you
saying
see
much.
this shit? Did you see this shit that the one guy said? They're like this super they're like fascist, anti-fascist when it comes to Assad, and they said the al in al-qeada stands for Alawite. And then I'm like, it stands for the, because it's Arabic for the.
It's literally the.
and then they said that because Assad is born on September 11th, right? So they said that Bin Laden.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
Dude,
I mean, like in the
fucking
70s.
awesome.
In the 70s,
That's
right?
awesome.
So these guys are saying that it was a birthday gift to Assad, and that was the real agenda of 9/11. This guy literally said that. And it's because Osama has a Syrian wife. His first wife is Syrian. And I think I've told you this, is I attribute part of that to his radicalization is his Syrian wife, because she was she was clearly from like the Muslim Brotherhood area of Syria type thing. She
So
was
like hard Assadist or like.
No, this is like she.
Or Muslim Brotherhood doesn't like Assad.
Yeah. I don't think she would be an Assadist at all. But I that was that's a long time ago. Like that's in the 70s. We're talking. So like little Assad was just being born, and Hafez al-Assad was still in power, and like it was early enough that like I don't know how hardline is, because he doesn't like get radicalized into like the late 80s to 90s. I mean, he gets radicalized early in the fucking war, but no, Osama,
Oh, yeah.
Like it's really not until like Zahwari comes in where he gets like really bonkers, which is like towards the end of the Afghan war, like the last 3 years of the Afghan war.
Where
independence for Taiwan. You heard it here from Hasan.
Because remember,
he didn't say it, Ethan.
The overwhelming majority of people living in
opposite.
Taiwan are still Han Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, despite the fact that it's a separate country, it's still like the same people. The language is the same. People.
Just
my guy. Taiwanese speak traditional Chinese, and the Chinese speak simplified Chinese because Mao made it his mission
remember
to
when
eliminate
Hitler
Chinese language.
justified the invasion of Poland because he was protecting German-speaking people and because they spoke the German language. Remember when Russia invaded Ukraine because the areas that they invaded spoke Russian, and they justified that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we're saying here, as far as language goes, China has less right to Taiwan than Russia does have with Crimea and the Donbass.
Well, it's true.
But Hitler, totally right, and I guess with these people.
People will say
Ukraine belongs to Russia for that exact reason.
I don't think
Yes!
Ukraine belongs
Hey,
to Russia
I fucking called
because
it.
Ukrainian.
Well, I was also saying yes because Ethan said also just what I literally said.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm just happy.
Ukrainian-
I think is I agree. I agreed with you that Ukraine was going to be the number one thing, which is why the thing that I said next is it's going to be something that America did.
Yeah.
So, because we just can't have
Or
the
it'll
same,
be
you can't
Azov.
have the same bet. You know, I let you have the
Mhm.
one that was going to be the easier one that inevitably had to happen. But I still think we're going to get a comparison to something that people blame America for in the Middle East, like the Iraq War or Libya.
Yeah.
Or something like
I
that.
mean, comparing it to Iraq is not an untrue thing.
I think it's totally fine to compare. I think they're actually just like how some people, even though it's less comparable, they compare the Afghan War with Vietnam because there's a phrase that somehow came about that they wanted to give them their own Vietnam, which is like one thing one neocon said. It might have been Brzezinski, but I don't think it was.
And now it's just the narrative that they go
Oh
with.
yeah, it's so stupid.
Nation state, the Ukrainian nation state project, there are similarities. You're not wrong about that. But the Ukrainian nation state project as a well-defined nation state has always has been around for much longer than like Taiwan being an independent.
I was going to say now on Crimea, on the other hand, we don't know who that belongs to.
Nation
Crimea.
So the people's entitlement to freedom.
Like you can make a better
is
argument for
just-
Crimea being a separate country than like
But what I'm
Ukraine.
hearing is that it's just a function of how old their culture is, how entitled they are to freedom.
It's not. I don't think that it's like those two concepts are not the two concepts at play here. Like
So-
it's not like entitled to freedom versus what was the other thing that you said?
Well, it just seems like you're talking about like their they have some kind of national heritage or identity.
Well, the thing that I was mentioning there, the reason why I mentioned that is because you were talking about making a comparison between like Israel, Palestine, being that the same people, I think makes that kind of, especially existing under the construct of having like one nation state regardless with freedom of travel in between. It's literally like a mile off the.
Oh, he's talking about Taiwan and freedom of travel in between. Okay, so he's saying they're just because they're Han Chinese. It's not language, culture, nothing to do with it. It's only ethnicity that matters to Hasan now.
The coast, you know what I mean, of China, having all of that factors into like whether there's going to be assimilation.
What is it? The Canary Islands off the coast of Morocco there with Spain. Spain still owns those Canary Islands off the coast of Morocco. I think that's what they're called. And then Morocco's like, we have a video coming about it soon, but there's also Morocco totally claims Western Sahara, right? What about that, Hasan? Are we only focused on the things that America's focused on? We're not going to stand up for the West Saharans. I almost said West Moroccans, which would have been really wrong.
Or not. And there's no need for assimilation even. They have like normal trade relations with Taiwan, you know what I mean? It's like that's why it's considered to be a delicate.
What do you mean there's no need for assimilation? This sounds like if China was in control of Taiwan, nothing would change, is what we're trying to like make it sound like. What do you mean no need for assimilation?
Political conversation, but one that currently. The current system benefits both.
And so, if
places.
China takes military action against Taiwan, as some people speculate may happen,
yeah, I mean, that would not be good. I don't think that would be good. I
Wow.
think that would be really, really terrifying. It would be disruptive for the entire global economy as well.
right? But I'm just mean like from whose army are you joining?
No,
Whose front line are you fighting?
I'm fucking moving to
Taiwan.
I'm moving to an
Is this
undisclosed
Oh,
nation.
okay.
I'm
Okay,
moving
so
to
you'll
an
advocate the regime's violence, but when it comes down to it, you're not
He
going to
won't live there. Yeah,
just like
he
all
won't
these
put his money
people-
where his mouth is.
Yeah, just like all these people who fucking, want to
Mhm.
simp for Russia.
undisclosed location.
I'm on the front.
I'm gonna be on a fucking
line.
ship.
Whoever has the best
screaming.
computer chips, I'm fighting for.
Correct, Ethan. That's the correct take. That's the American.
Wait, what
take.
do you say? I missed
Ethan made a joke that whoever has the best computer chips, I'm fighting for.
that.
I'm a chip boy
Well,
myself.
If it wasn't for America, China would have some pretty solid chip technology.
Ba-bow.
What
Wrong
a-
again.
What a dumbass. What a dumbass.
Oh my god. I wonder if
Oh.
he knows that all of China's technology is stolen.
yeah, right. So there's countries that they'll go to and they'll be like, no, you don't sell this technology to China because they're going to
Mhm.
steal it, right? And so America has especially made crackdowns in that sector lately because as long as China keeps the chip disadvantage, it further justifies to people who, because there's obviously going to be people who are softer on China, right? So as long as Taiwan has the chips that we need, it's going to make those people who are softer on China. I mean, even Hasan admitted it, that it would be devastating, right? So even Hasan, at the end of the day, generally agrees that military action against Taiwan would be bad for everyone. But still, America shouldn't sell to the client states or do anything about China. Okay. How long did it take China to make the ball on a ballpoint pen, Hasan? Let me know. Let me know about that, and you tell me if they can fucking manufacture the chips, even with stolen technology. You'd think it would be easy to steal a ball on a ballpoint pen.
You would
and
think
be able
so,
to
wouldn't you?
routine it, right? Wouldn't you? People are so, they don't understand the technology that even goes into that. And then you'll have like Friedman up here talking about the mechanics and like trade of a pencil and how great it is. Like, Friedman, you should shut the fuck up and talk about actual innovation of the ballpoint pen. Fuck a pencil.
But America's like regularly trying to stop that process. Like they went to the Netherlands to be like, you can't sell China your chip technology, which
Why?
is fucking insane.
Why?
If you ask me,
It's incredible the takes in chat. How many people are like, just the polarization of.
You're right here. Russia technically belongs to Ukraine. Ukraine was first. What? That's fucking awesome.
Ukraine was first. That's
People
the
are
funny thing.
recognizing that Ethan is trolling as well.
It took 60 years for China to develop the ballpoint pen after the West.
Ethan is grilling Hasan. Dude, the fact, does Hasan not get to see the chat during this show? 'Cause that's so
Surely
funny.
he does.
I think we should take Hasan's chat away from him way more. It would make for such better entertainment. We could laugh at it a lot.
Of this topic. It's
I
fucking
don't know.
insane.
The chat is funny when he's
polarization.
yelling at his chat because they're right and he's wrong and he can't deal with that fact. It's pretty
Bro,
fucking funny.
I think I didn't watch it, but I think there's a debate exists where Jake Huger is debating him on 9/11 because Hasan thinks that America deserved it.
What the fuck?
So I might have to look at that.
on the topic, because the American media has been gearing people to be across the board like vicious, no matter what, to any foreign adversary.
Whoa, crazy.
Crazy.
You mean the people who got us sold the Iraq War to the public?
China being
Crazy.
the main foreign adversary now.
You mean the whole reason, like the main reason people don't watch the media? Like people think that it's something recent to do with like them being anti-Trump or something because like proto-fascism has rotted everyone's brains. But people forget the reason we stopped trusting the media was because of the Iraq War.
Iraq, yeah.
now? So people are going to be very passionate in their defense and start saying
A lot of
"We
their
care
coverage of the
people
Gulf War is pretty
who
okay.
Yeah, they're like grilling the like military commander who like came up with it.
Yeah. So it's
And they're like
it's pretty interesting that
yeah.
they're so adamant about criticizing the Gulf War, but they completely bent over for the state.
Yeah, to
on
literally
Iraq.
sell the state's propaganda to get
Crazy.
to justify the invasion of Iraq.
It's fucking insane, especially because it's like 8 years apart. Same journalist, I guarantee it.
Oh yeah. Well, and then you'll probably hear people even saying, "I covered it during the first Gulf War, and we saw." But like, it's not like the media also didn't like grill the government over Vietnam. They eventually came around and like became anti-Iraq war, but it was like after like we had soldiers doing like gun signs to guys in dog collars. That's when the media started being kind of against the war. And then even then, months later, is the Fallujah Blackwater Bridge incident, right? Which was done by civilians of the people of Fallujah, and they blamed it on al-Qeada. They hung a guy because of that incident. Guy was a head of a militia, right? Definitely the head of a militia, but they hung him for the Blackwater Bridge incident because it was him who ordered the attack on those guys, technically, because it was his territory. They took a wrong turn. They actually proved this in court. Blackwater is liable for the people who died that day. They proved it, like, not actually, I think they settled out of court. I shouldn't say they proved it in court, but basically they had enough of a case because they didn't even give these dudes maps. They had no armor, no maps, right? And it was just two agents, and they just had like PDW type weapons. So it's just two Blackwater agents, and they were basically transporting like restaurant equipment, to feed soldiers and stuff, like logistical stuff. And so an IED had already been taken off on the like a little above Fallujah. So they diverted to a route. Right. So when the military diverted these guys, they turned into one of the main districts of Fallujah under the control of the IAI. And if there's video of it, the IAI has a documentary about it. And they threw a grenade in one of the cars because these guys were driving with their windows down. No, IAI. They threw, I assume, because they mostly use the RKGs. Right, I assume it was an RKG because the type
of the stick grenades.
Yeah, but they're shaped charges, so as far as throwing it into a car, it's not going to do as much damage as if it was
throwing it at a door.
Yeah, you have to like hit a tank with it to like melt the people inside.
Yeah.
But like there's like one of the guys is shot in the throat. You see them like pull the gun off of him, like his like dead head is like stuck on the strap, And then the citizens of Fallujah came out and set the cars on fire and dragged the bodies to the street because the Marines had just shot protesters who wanted their kids to go to school. It's all connected, right? And then the media defended that and did defense on Fallujah. And then CNN, I think, filmed a war crime happen in Fallujah. They showed somebody execute a wounded guy on the ground.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So that then turned it back again towards the resistance of the war. Then they came after the hunter-killer teams that were like getting the intelligence to hunt Zarqawi, and those teams had to be banned. And from there, it dialed up into general anti-war sentiment. History lesson, Hasan.
You're not talking about the people in Taiwan. You don't care about them.
Watch them not even talk about Iraq.
If it weren't for the media, propaganda, people would not be.
But I just love when we set the background information to debunk stuff ahead of time. So I can almost guarantee that he'll talk about the Middle East at least.
Surely at some point.
Yeah, I mean, think about it this way: why the fuck does no one care about Yemen? You know what I mean? Why? Because Saudi Arabia.
What are you, a libertarian?
First of all, if people didn't care about Yemen, there wouldn't have been enough pressure on the Trump admin to stop selling them weapons, right? And it wasn't just because of that. It It was also because they massacred a journalist. People boycotted the WWE because they have the event in Saudi Arabia every year. You know, the crown
Yep.
jewel event that they have.
Uh-huh.
They've started boycotting and coming after the WWE because of their ties to Saudi Arabia. Not just because this journalist was killed, but because of that fucking guided munition that was dropped in a fucking civilian market on 40 school children, still with backpacks on and everything, right? There was a tremendous amount of pressure about Yemen. This whole thing about nobody caring about Yemen, you know who I only see people, and you know what, for years I wanted more coverage about Yemen. You know, it was one of the main things that I was advocating for, especially with the cluster munitions. Now suddenly people are citing it for cluster munitions when they're being sold to Ukraine.
Of course they are.
But like the only time I see it now is either it's going to be like people not carrying out the Palestine thing that we're suddenly seeing now, comparing Ukraine to Palestine, and then also doing it with Yemen as well. It's only suddenly now a token for these fucking authoritarian simps. So dead wrong. The only reason why Taiwan has more focus is because it's a bigger deal. The Houthis controlling Yemen, I don't give a shit, dude. I do not give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if Iran takes over Saudi Arabia, quite frankly. like even Iran actually has better human rights than Saudi Arabia. It would be an improvement.
Arabia is the one, our ally, Saudi Arabia, is the one doing the genocide in Yemen. And you never see people get this passionate about Yemen. I don't see people get this passionate about Syria.
I think Taiwan has more.
Who's bombing Syria, Hasan?
Good question. Couldn't possibly be Russia, could it?
Do you remember the Obama admin at all?
Yes.
Like, the whole red line thing. The whole red line thing. Like I think. Oh God, what's his fucking name? It's I think it's John Kerry. He says something like that. Even Hitler used chemical weapons. You know, like how bad these chemical attacks are in Syria. Like obviously he meant like, you know, like on civilian infrastructure, you know, not like he didn't do the Holocaust, but it was like such a bad comparison to make.
Yeah.
But like,
it's a poor choice of words.
Issue of the Obama admin. Everyone just forgot because Benghazi fucking happened.
More relevance to the United States.
And why did Benghazi happen? Because oh my God! The same guy who I brought up earlier, who says that all white and al-Qaeda are connected, right? Same guy. The only thing right I've seen him say was kind of shit about how he believes that the Republicans are solely responsible for why Syria lost, and it's like Russia is responsible. Like the Mujahideen would have won if it wasn't for Russia. So it's nothing to do with the Republicans. But he thinks that because the Republicans sidelined these chemical weapons shit, that's why they lost, because he's like that, like, you know, K-hived, I guess. But Benghazi happened because we were doing things like smuggling like grenade machine guns and like what are they, blowpipes? It's like the Stinger but the Soviet version. It's like really shit. It's like older than that. Not even new. I think
it's some acronym.
But I think they call them blowpipes.
Maybe. It's like the American AT-4, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, this is like a Stinger, like an anti-air one. Anti-air munition. So we were trying to get those types of munitions when you should have just been giving them Stingers. But the reason why the CIA was smuggling weapons out of Benghazi through Gaddafi's armory is because they couldn't get like an aid package funded, because these people were shutting down our government, you know, and they're about to do it again. The whole impeachment inquiry that's going on right now, it's to prevent the fascist faction inside the Republican Party from shutting down the government. How funny is that?
Wait, is it really? The fuck?
Yes.
States, like in terms of economical, and social.
Yeah, that was developed.
Well, that's only natural that people would care more about something that affects them more. I don't think Yemen. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just don't think Yemen affects.
But it's still people. There's still people that are being mercilessly slaughtered.
You know who also is killing people in Yemen, though? This is like the Donbass. Like the Donbass was hard to be like take a side on, because like the militia were also killing civilians.
Yes.
The Russians just killed way more because they used unguided artillery. for everything, right? And so it killed so much more people because of the shelling, constantly shelling the Donbass. But like, I would say that militias are less responsible for this type of stuff than professional armies, you know? And that even goes for like Wagner, even though they're totally professionals, you know? But you should be held to more account if you're like an official soldier for an army.
I agree.
But still, it was hard to take a hard stance on the Donbass, just like it's like a hard stance to say like the Houthis are the good guys in Yemen. That's also insane to say. You know, it's like obviously Ukraine should be independent, but for the long, like there's a common take right now, even where they're like, I don't care, fascists die. It's like as long as the fascists are dead by the end of Ukraine, I'm happy. You know, that's a very common take. Like that was even more common when it came to like covering the Donbass, and like especially someone who had like seen right sector rise in Euromaidan, I was really hesitant to like cover anything going on in the Donbass. I just didn't want a part of it. Instead, I went to Syria, where it was way better.
Whereas no one is being slaughtered in Taiwan in a similar capacity, and yet there are way more passionate because,
not saying it's
like
right or
you said,
wrong. I mean,
it is designed to have this kind of.
And you think that if the only reason people care about Ukraine is because of the media?
Absolutely, 100%.
Nobody would care.
Do I agree? Yeah.
No. Are you kidding me?
I don't think people would care. If America wasn't funding Ukraine's defense, I don't think people would care.
Yeah, that's not the media, though.
No, but that's like what they're talking about is all the media's like, oh, we're going here, we're sending this much money, and then the Russian propagandists get a hold of it, and the libertarians and the communists and all these people start repeating the same
I'm
shit.
old enough to remember that these conversations also happened with like Syria and Yemen about aid packages going to the Saudis. You don't think during the Trump admin that the Democrats were like, why? The only reason why it doesn't seem comparable is because there was so much going on in the Trump admin every fucking day being a circus, right? So like you had so much news developing that was hit and what people wanted that you wouldn't do human interest piece, you know? But this was still a thing going on inside like the Senate and stuff. Like a main thing that was going on was critiquing Trump and these fucking arms packages to Saudi Arabia. We've all seen the clip where he uses MBS as a billboard, you know? Like he was criticized heavily for that. And also not only was he criticized heavily, they enhanced it just because it was Donald Trump to be worse than it already was. So to say that this is like something that's unique to Ukraine is just not true. Also, we haven't had information warfare develop until like the end of the Syrian civil war. Only around like 2018, 2017 area is where we're having like the information warfare really come together. Like it started with ISIS in 2014 and like them like controlling Twitter and shit. And now Russia is the best in the world at information warfare. Like even better than Israel. Like they do more. You know, Israel is more targeted on what they do, but Russia's wave is huge. They're able to infiltrate and use Myanmar. They're able to use Ukraine with operatives inside Ukraine and operatives inside America. Imagine if we had operative and like America, it's not like we don't do information warfare. It's just not comparable to Russia. But like imagine if we had operatives inside Russia like doing information warfare from inside Russia to Russian citizens. It wouldn't happen. You can't do it.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't happen.
But it's been allowed to happen in Ukraine. Still, right? And it's not like they don't know these people exist in Ukraine. They're just letting them do it a lot of times because they're free citizens. Right? And like you start cracking down on those information warfare networks, ooh, they get mad.
Yeah, of course.
Did anybody care about Georgia?
Yeah.
Wait. Who said that?
Dan? You
no
mean
shit.
But also, like, you mean like the entire EU? Like, what do you mean? Like
nobody helped them though. Russia just steamrolled.
Yeah,
them.
no shit. But like, do you not remember like this being a thing with Angela Merkel, guys? That's like part of her legacy is letting Putin steamroll Georgia to buy time for Ukraine. She says now, which is I call bullshit. You know, she's trying to save her. She's trying to save and redeem her legacy. What's funny is when they got like the DW, the German media company, they did like a going away documentary on Angela Merkel, and one of the people they talked to was George W. Bush. And I'm like, you couldn't get a better American to talk about her.
Jesus Christ.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I don't know.
No one gave a shit about Georgia. That's
the
crazy.
EU did. The EU did. The EU did. Also, do we not remember like that this is like even like an information warfare narrative that Russia pushes today? That like it was because we were saying like George Bush said they could join NATO. Like that's the whole excuse Russia used to justify this war. We just, gee, I wonder, like, if there was anything going on that America was doing foreign policy wise that required our attention more than Georgia. You know, like, I think some of the war crimes America was committing are more important than the occupation of Georgia. I think they're both important, but as far as like, we should hold our government accountable first and then focus on the rest of the world. So go fuck yourself, guys. People actually cared in the EU, just not in America.
Well, I mean, what about in Europe? They seem to care about Ukraine a lot.
Yes, Ethan. Yes.
It's a similar principle.
That's so funny.
Media is still media everywhere around the world.
I mean,
it plays a very significant role in people's lives.
Gee, I wonder if it has something to do with like a burning Soviet legacy that scars are still in like on people, you know, and like continued into the Cold War and how it divided that continent and how much damage it did to Europe, you know, even though they're still allowed to be like the Western power.
Ukraine borders
yes,
Europe,
Ethan.
And I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but Georgia is not really in such a geographically strategically important location as Ukraine.
Look at all the attention. So, like, even the last Armenian war, right? So, look at all the attention on Armenia right now. How many people are already talking about it before the inevitable fight that's coming? They're more plugged in than they were the last time. Like, more people got, as it went on, more people got really plugged into Armenia. But, like, the before time is greater now than it was then.
Okay.
Well, I'm just explaining why people might care more about Ukraine than Georgia. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying
still
why.
People. It's the people that are being ruthlessly slaughtered.
I'm just saying because your theory.
I don't know about that. I think Georgia is a much different scenario. It was like 3 days, you know.
Yeah.
I wish we could make this point about Chechnya though, but that's like inside Russia. What are we gonna do? You know?
Yeah, there's nothing you can really
stop
really
a world power with nukes from committing human rights atrocities. What are we, the American public?
The support for Ukraine and Taiwan is essentially manufactured. That it wouldn't exist. It shouldn't exist.
I'm not saying it shouldn't exist. I'm simply stating that. I'm simply stating that.
It's manufactured. People only care.
Can you believe it? Without reporters, people wouldn't know that things are going on in the world.
Crazy.
About it because they've been tricked to caring about it.
It's not tricked, but dude, like, normal people don't think about foreign policy. Are you saying that you don't think that normal people's opinions about like international matters are shaped by what?
This is so Trump brained. So fucking Trump derangement syndrome brained. What are you talking about? Like, do you not remember Benghazi? Like, if you want to talk about like how people were like propagandized into caring about foreign policy, like, do you not remember they made a movie about that? Like, with like Jack Reacher, Shadow Recruit in it, I think, or was he in Zero Dark 30?
I think he was in Zero Dark 30.
I want to say he's also in the Benghazi movie. Jack Reacher, Shadow Recruit.
By what they see on the news and what's priority.
Like, also, like, the Iraq War, like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, you're old enough to remember this. Like, bro, there's no way you didn't see Jon Stewart's Daily Show, like, in its prime when he's talking about Bush being a warmonger. Like, you might have been too young to see, like, Abu Ghraib on TV, but, like, come on, how do you not know about it in hindsight?
I'll give you a better example.
Of course it is.
Hold on, because I'm being double teamed now, so I need to speak.
Okay.
Of course it is. But this implication that you're like, if you say nobody cares about Taiwan,
Also, ask people their opinion on Israel and Palestine. Watch them have a hard take in either direction every single time. Tell me they don't care about foreign policy.
or Ukraine, because of the media, it implies that, you know, the support for those two countries or care for those two countries is like,
Nobody
you know,
implied.
manufactured. That it's really not sincere. That's what it sounds like.
You jumped to that. Nobody
I'm
said.
sorry.
No,
but-
I am saying
No.
that.
Dan is like, you're jumping to that. And Hasan is like, no, you're absolutely right. Genocide is based, Ethan. That's what you don't understand.
Just saying
Yeah,
that,
I'm
Dan.
saying that the support for the overwhelming majority of Americans,
Yeah,
for any
manufactured.
country
It's not
that
authentic.
any country that the United States of America has a genuine interest in, is manufactured in either direction. It can be manufactured carelessness and inconsideration, like being inconsiderate and ruthlessly violent at certain points, which is the example I was going to use with 9/11 and what we did post 9/11. Or it could be manufactured in the other direction, where it's like, this is the just war. This is the just.
You remember when John McCain, the neocon, John McCain in 2001 said torture is wrong and we shouldn't do it. Right? That was crazy. I think it was the Hudson Institute. They have this video where a guy's like, because Obama like condemned torture, and they were just, and so, because Obama wouldn't torture, there's this video and he's like, don't you want to just say you're being silly, President Obama, that we know these things work and we have to work down a list? Like, come on. And he's like, I would say that Obama is being naive, you know, like we could have said that slavery would have ended without the Civil War, you know. And it's like, bro, did you just compare CIA black sites to slavery ending? Like, what are you talking about?
Just war that we have to fight.
Like, not only that, he's using it in a way to justify it, you know? Right? Like, he's like trying to say, like, we know it's good to torture people, and compares it to like knowing slavery was wrong back then. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
The brainworms. It's just
like we
the
did in
brain rot.
Vietnam originally, when there
it's
was
the Hudson
when there was
Institute. You know how they
need to generate popular support for whatever kind of action America consistently takes. Now,
I'm not denying that propaganda exists.
Yeah,
but I am saying that, like, the comparison of Ukraine to Georgia is not. It's not apples to oranges. That's all I'm saying. It's not.
What what do you mean by this? That
Ukraine borders like mainland Russia or Europe.
Okay.
Europe cares a lot about it.
Okay. I would say that it's probably more. I would say that in Europe, there's probably more of a not controversy necessarily, but it's a more divisive issue in I think Europe than it is in America. Most
Does
likely.
Georgia border Turkey?
Like, you know,
do they have a physical border? Then it's got a border with the EU. It's got a border with NATO. It's fair.
Well, Turkey's not in the EU.
No, but they're part of NATO.
You know, but also it's like, it's still in Russia's like territory. Like, it's right there with Azerbaijan and Armenia. It's a different scenario just in the fact of imperialism.
Not the best precedent when like tyrants start land grabbing in Europe. Generally
I don't disagree with that. I agree with you. I think that
and so I understand why people don't like
completely unjustifiable. And it's also, even if you're like pro Russia, pro Vladimir Putin, anti NATO, right? Even if you're all of those things,
which you fully said this before the invasion happened. So you're only backpedaling it now because, you know, you would have been deplatformed like the rest of the fucking agents.
It is a laughably idiotic thing to do, because
you want to talk about media control. Look at the amount of Russian outlets that like we immediately were like, get the fuck out, right? A bunch of like, they got shut down, they got deplatformed from like so much stuff. They shut down so much information warfare networks. We're going to talk about manufacturing control because like MSNBC reported on it. Come on. If you want to make a point about it, actually do the research into like the points that you're making and develop a fucking take instead of just being a fucking parrot. Who's the fucking bad comedian who mimics the people talking about vaccines and COVID? Jim Brewer. That's you, Hasan.
We've done is now galvanize NATO support in Europe and justified it, because That was the entire reason for NATO's existence, is to stop the USSR, stop communism.
Yeah, when it was created, we were literally talking about if NATO was necessary after the USSR fell. And Joe Biden is the guy who made the argument that it was. You can see him like even like before the Bosnian War talking about it. There's very public speeches about it, right? And NATO expansion. That Joe Biden is the guy, right? And the Western Alliance is there to prevent European countries from invading each other, because the last time it happened, it started World War III. It's very clear that's what NATO's purpose is. I don't know where you're getting your takes, but they're clearly not from like this decade or the last one or the one before that when it actually started.
From thriving. And obviously Russia is a very different country than the USSR was, and is no longer ideologically aligned with communism at all. It is a state that Western capitalists basically redesigned and propped up.
Yeah, Western capitalism is dripping through Russia. Like, yeah, sure. You know what he's talking about?
Oligarchs, including people like Vladimir Putin. So, despite all of that, it's still utilized.
Putin isn't an oligarch. The oligarchs form pillars of the new Russian state, but Putin himself is not an oligarch. He's backed by oligarchs. There's a difference.
As a protection racket that you basically justified its existence of by doing such an unimaginably cruel, inhumane, unjustifiable act.
What?
Invading Ukraine.
Okay.
So it's a.
You mean NATO's purpose was revitalized because an EU nation was invaded? Not even an EU nation, a European nation. Because like Georgia, it's debatable if it's Europe.
Strategic blunder, even if you're like pro-Russia.
I do think that I just think people are capable of caring about it without.
Well, I mean, I care
being
about
like,
it.
you know,
I care about it.
People sincerely care about it, even though you think it's unfair that people didn't care as much about Georgia. You know, that's my point.
It's not necessarily just not caring about Georgia. My opinion on this is that we, as a nation here in America and all around the world, are.
The thing is if we gave Georgia the time to prepare and Russia needed to do the things that it needed to do in Ukraine and Georgia, it would be a lot different. That was more of a surprise attack. Georgia was like the lesson to be learned, right? So if it like Ukraine would be in a much different position if Georgia didn't happen. We would not like know for certain that this is definitely going to happen. We wouldn't have the policy of deterrence that we have, which failed to deter Russia from invading Ukraine. So we better hope that they fucking step it up and deter China from invading Taiwan.
Are not immune to propaganda.
No.
As a matter of fact, every piece of information that we analyze has a great impact on our decision-making process. And therefore, doing a full media blitz on any particular issue is usually going to yield these kinds of results and this kind of support, which without that kind of media blitz would not.
Here's the thing. He's so stupid because he doesn't understand like the viewers also drive the media. It's like a cohesive relationship. If the media is reporting on shit that the viewers want to hear about something else, because it's not like yours truly and many others didn't know about Ukraine the moment it got invaded, and like we all put out that picture of them crossing the border. We knew it happened. Everyone started tuning in to figure out what was going on in Ukraine. It became like the number one thing, and it had been played up beforehand, right? Mm-hmm. The people wanted to see it. If they didn't want to see it, they would complain and the media would stop doing it. So as much as like Fox News puts these ideas into people's head and like programs them and all that stuff, if the people didn't want proto-fascism, they wouldn't be doing proto-fascism. The proto-fascism is in demand, which is why you see even CNN being tempered to the right. Even though my mom will be like, CNN is Democrat news.
Not exist. Does that make sense?
Again, I'm not denying that propaganda exists and that we're all, you know.
Yeah.
influence.
And
it can be
the
influenced
example I
by
was
it.
going to use was our justification for the invasion of Afghanistan and the invasion of Iraq. These were both.
There we go. I mean, that's if we had a bingo card, we would have gotten it. Still time to
Yeah.
too. We got it all.
We did. We
Unjustifiable
pretty much
wars, in
predicted
my
everything.
opinion. The war on terror was across the board.
Okay, so Afghanistan is a much different story because it was also it was actually a limited contingent in the beginning, unlike Russia's supposed limited contingent in Afghanistan and Ukraine. They're both limited contingents apparently. So the thing is like Afghanistan, we have the CIA working with the Northern Alliance at first and all that stuff, and just doing like intelligence ops, Operation Anaconda and stuff before like the full deployment, which really also coincided with like Iraq. We stepped up deployment in Afghanistan. Right, you have like the bombing of Tora Bora, stuff like that. We were still working with like on the ground militia with like Green Berets and CIA, really basic operatives, right? And at this time, we were in negotiations to prevent a full-scale invasion of Afghanistan. We had more cooperation from Omar than we did Saddam, for sure.
That's saying something, considering
Yeah.
that America made Saddam.
They made Omar too, technically,
Mm.
in a different way. Mainly Pakistan made them, but
Yeah.
Board, wholesale, ruthless, cruel, led to millions of people dying, led to tens of millions of people being destabilized, and we're still living.
okay. So there's this new stat that came out, right? Because we've been over this. 1 million people did not die in the global war on terror,
Mm.
right? So there's this new stat that came out, and the stat is since 9/11, 4.5 million people have died from violence in the world. And these
Okay.
stats have equated that to being America's fault. Like the gassing of people in Syria, these like Wagner massacres in Mali. Like
No, that never happened. Don't be silly.
so like all this shit that they're talking about is, and even in this report that gives us this 4.5 million number, you'll never get there. You never guess what it specifically says. It specifically says that under 1 million are attributed to American in the fucking report.
Interesting.
living in the rubble of that kind of
Right, but
cruel
the
and
wo-
unusual action, and it was championed by a majority of the American population, and until like the past like couple of years.
Like here's the thing. What do you think happened more at the height of the war on terror? Like really, really the height. What do you think happened more? Terrorist attacks on civilians or drone strikes on civilians? What do you think happened more?
I'm going to say drone strikes, but I feel like that's wrong.
No, 10 times less.
Interesting.
So the
Very
deaths of
interesting.
drone strikes are 10 times less than the deaths of terrorism, basically. There's differences, there's nuances because, there is like that wedding hit that killed a lot of people. There's certain strikes that kill a lot of people. Just like, look at this like al-Shabaab hit that happened at that hotel. Like that was a really bad attack. Like 300 people dying from terrorism is a lot. 3,000 is like 9/11. We can't even put it on like when we do graphs and shit. We can't even put it on the graph for terrorism because it like destroys the statistical margins and stuff.
Yeah, it would ruin the averages.
Yeah.
Years where
What does that have
where
to do with
attitude-
Ukraine being invaded by Russia?
Where do you think that kind of attitude came from?
Okay,
Where do you think that
but you think
justification came from? There was $1 billion
it's not the
industry.
Same thing, man.
no,
Ukraine
it's
was invaded by Russia,
No, it is exactly the same
and
thing.
it's
from
literally
the-
a tyrant grabbing land in Europe.
I agree with what you're saying. My point is,
But-
I would say Ethan has a point. That's the difference between Iraq. It wasn't, even though Hasan will be like, imperialist control. Shut up. Iran controls Iraq. Go fuck yourself. Go ahead. You were saying something?
Tyrant grabbing land in Europe.
I agree with what you're saying. My point
but-
is,
He always follows it with a but.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Propaganda exists. Yeah, I know.
no, my point is that Americans think that they are independent thinkers, and yet they are
Free thinker Hasan.
Freest
What-
of thinkers.
Yeah. Americans are dumb, and I am actually informed and intelligent. My chat tells me what to say.
motivated into believing things, no matter what it
agree
is.
that
It can be a just cause.
I agree that.
It can be a just cause in the situation where you're where you're supporting Ukraine and Ukrainian independence, which is an independent nation state. You know what I mean? It's
But we can also admit that there's plenty of people online that we see that are also like the same way that we were calling out people after 9/11 as being way too hardline. Like the temperament still exists within the pro-Ukraine, and I mean real pro-Ukraine.
The shelling, right? Again, it's just like Ukraine. It's just like al-qeada. It's all like all of these people, right?
Oh yeah, solder shelling people, yeah, all the time.
Everything that they do is justified because they were invaded.
Yeah, everything solder did is justified. I agree. People say that that not everything, because people try to attribute the drill torture to him when it wasn't. It was like further south, the Iranian-backed militias, right? But just because he's Shia, anything that Iran did bad, they also attribute to solder if they're on that side of the Iraq alliance.
Been an independent nation state in the aftermath of the dissolution of the USSR. It's been an independent nation state. You can't just like turn around and be like, all right, it's mine now, right? I agree with that. And that it can be seen as a just war, an understandable war.
The thing is about the Donbass, it was different, a little different, because they were using like proxy forces kind of at that time. They were like military backed, right?
Who was?
The Donbass for Russia, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
So
I mean, it was basically Wagner and Russian.
Well, there's other stuff like there's the Igor Girkin or whatever his name is. Like he was personally leading like there was these like they were like it would be like us using Green Berets, you know. It's but the point is that one is slightly different. The militias still have to be accountable for hitting civilian places. Yes. Solder is a different story because it was like
a full-on
well, he was, but it was a full-on like imperial invasion, right?
Yeah, well, it's not a sanctioned militia by the state, is my point.
Yeah,
where Azov was.
That's true, though they were sanctioned militias by the state and solder wasn't. But also, the state was controlled by America. So
yeah.
The point is that there's actually a lot of nuance to be discussed here. Would you believe it? If the world is not black and white.
Imagine that.
It's not even a war that the Ukrainian people wanted, right? But having said that, the American support, the full-throated support, is absolutely.
It doesn't seem like there's full-throated support. There's a lot of people that don't support it. There's a very diverse opinion of
if you looked at polls in the original invasion, the amount of.
But I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
Of support.
Seems like there's a lot of conservative people who are like Putin simps, and then there's also a bunch of like lefties, like I mean that derogatory.
Those aren't real lefties.
Who aren't like who are like the guy we were speaking to, the communist professor.
Richard Wolff?
Yeah, who's like kind of he people like him are also.
Ethan's right, because Ethan brought him on because like he liked some of his intro takes, and I think Richard Wolff does have really good intro takes for like basic explaining of.
You say Richard Wolff?
Socialism is when the government does stuff, and it's more socialism the more stuff it does, and if it does a real lot of stuff, it's communism.
He has fine intro takes, but when they brought him on the show, he started saying shit like how the Ukraine war was like justified, right? He like gets his foot in the door with rational arguments about socialism that are really good. It's a really good guy to listen to get a base understanding of socialism. But then you go advanced and you're like, wait a minute. That's, by the way, the soundbite I forgot to upload. It's about him being a brain-sucking parasite.
But yeah, it's literally every time. It's what Russell Brand does as well.
Except he's not really rational. He's just kind of
but he does the same thing. He'll get them with populist bullshit and then start talking about how a Bangladesh lady committing a fucking famine because
Sri Lanka,
of fucking
Sri
Lanka. Okay, a stupid fucking policy that caused the famine is somehow a good thing. Fuck you. It's the same. I feel the same way about Hasan. Go fuck yourself.
Ukraine in general.
I don't know his entire perspective.
He doesn't seem very bullish.
I don't think you can be pro. If you are offering even critical support to Russia, or not Russia, but like Vladimir Putin in general, I don't think you're doing the right thing.
I don't
think
know what's his position because he didn't really flesh it out.
I think you're.
Hello, Hasan.
I think you're the sauce in the sense.
I dozed off.
Hi, Hasan. Guess who's supporting Russia with material and lethal support? China. You fucking idiot.
Oh, we can't prove that though.
Yeah, okay.
we can only say, hey, these have Chinese writing on it. You know.
Yeah, they didn't pledge unilateral support at all.
It's not like we could.
Never happened.
Iran is like the only one where we can actually point to, you know. But yes,
stupid.
But that's also why Ukraine went to Saudi Arabia with a Saudi-held peace talk that was with China, and Ukraine said was productive. You know, Mr. Hasan, apologia for Butch guy who said that like Boris Johnson was against peace talks and things like that. Ukraine totally did peace talks, but Russia wasn't involved. It's almost like they're aware that China is like backing Russia in this, and they just can't like say it out loud, just like how we can't like say certain things about Taiwan out loud when it comes to China. It's almost like they're like a nuclear imperialist power that you kind of have to temper what you say about them. Isn't that weird?
Isn't that crazy?
Me or him?
No, like anyone that is like, oh no, Vladimir Putin did the right thing. He has to have this.
I don't think people are saying
who?
that.
Jackson Hinkle? Like who says this? It's always Russia is wrong for invading Ukraine, but NATO shouldn't have expanded. Or but
it's always a but. There's always
give me a but, another but.
But Nazis.
Yep, there you go. But shelling of the Donbass.
But biological weapons created
that one is full Jackson Hinkle though. That would be people who agree with Russia.
I think what I heard
made it in collaboration with a bio lab in Melbourne. Yeah, to kill specifically Slavic people with a targeted bio weapon.
It has the plot of the new James Bond movie. You know,
pretty much.
Right? It's like, oh, the biological nanobots can target specific DNA.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's like, oh yeah, it's targeting Slavs specifically, like Russia aren't Slavic.
You know, Boneface the Nazi, right? Who was in Blood Tribe.
Yes,
they appeared in Florida. So Blood Tribe kicked him out.
That's so funny.
So there's a whole backstory here, but basically, Scootercaster. She did a whole expose on it. If you read the thing that I sent you, she basically showed that this guy was never in Ukraine, right? So when questioned about this, they said that this is literally their source, Blood Tribe, that all he did was make vague Slavic noises when asked to speak Ukrainian. So he got kicked out.
Vague Slavic noises. That is awesome.
I'm not saying that all U.S. foreign policy is bad, but I think it is unquestionably true that the U.S. media crafts
could be better.
Of course,
yeah, it crafts
could be way better.
So what is the disagreement then? Like, what if maybe I'm not using
there's the
language.
implication that support.
It's your tone, Hasan. We all know. Dan as well. Dan is just as bad. He just doesn't say. He does a good job not talking. You know. Except on these times when he starts backing up Hasan on these things.
For Ukraine or Taiwan is not authentic.
Right, that you're purely falling for U.S. propaganda. That's not necessarily true.
I do agree with that.
And then you, Dan, said,
I don't think that
I was
the examples I use, and the examples I use are always like, America has what, 800 military bases all around the planet.
Oh my god! Shut up!
Did you know that we had so many bases after World War II that we decided we had to start shutting them down because there was like
they were too expensive?
No, because it was literally a weakness.
Right?
We were so spread out. It was literally a weakness.
That's pretty funny.
Also, like as far as bases go, like are we counting? Like it counts like Green Beret deployments. You know, where they'll be like based inside of a base owned by someone else.
Yes.
Like the Philippines, for example. Like we have U.S. bases inside the Philippines.
In the Filipino bases, but they're not U.S. bases.
Well, that's yeah. So the Filipinos will get the bases when America leaves. That was part of the deal. So there's stuff like that, which I think is a little different.
I think that's not a terrible thing.
Yeah, I think the number.
I'm assuming America builds them at their cost.
Yeah, that's what's happening. So like I think that it's not so much the number of bases, because we can easily, like, of course America has the most bases, but I think we can point out where America policy is spread thin, and we can especially critique the Obama and Trump admin. I mean, this whole policy ends with the massacre in Tonga or Tonga, whatever. I don't remember. I always forget the exact thing. But we overcommitted to operatives, right? So we expanded our special forces, which makes them not that special, right? So we overextend our special forces, start making everyone operators, because we think operators can just solve everything, that you can just have like limited military presence on the ground and solve everything. You just don't need to, you can have as many wars as you want, as long as you don't put the actual regular army there, then it's totally fine. This was a philosophy of the Obama admin that only ended because we got killed in a country and people went, wait, where did our guys get killed? Even though it's all public.
Which country was that?
I think it's Mali.
Okay.
The Sahel. So
yeah,
I mean, it's kind of it's basically this. It's
the
region, really.
the ambush. Yeah, right.
Tonga. Yeah,
I'm on board.
Have our hands in everyone's pockets, right? And there's active conflict happening everywhere around the planet all the time, and the United States is involved in it. If you not thinking about it, if you're not thinking about something happening specifically, that is because.
But his type of mindset would still extend it to like France. You know, France is definitely more involved in West Africa than the United States, and they would expect, even though France specifically opted out of like being militarily involved with NATO, even though they're a member, right? France gets a special Yes, France has a special carve out where they don't fall under NATO command, but they're a member of NATO. And then I mean, Iceland has a special carve out because they don't need a military.
Because they don't have a military.
So, I mean, there are certain special treatment members of NATO, like Turkey. Turkey's isn't exactly on paper. It's just one of those things that we could just point at, just like the Chinese support of Russia. You know, like we all know what's going on in these things.
For the most part, the media has not covered it. For the most part, the media is.
All right, I'm over it. Let's move on.
And I think that
I don't want to talk about it anymore.
That is deliberate. That is by design.
It's like just not even fun to watch, probably at this point.
No, it's great.
Oh, it's fantastic.
We're talking about Lauren Boebert being a psycho.
Okay,
we can do that.
We done? And we just watching the rest?
Appreciate it.
Tim Pool.